Well, perhaps when you think of inventors, names such as Thomas Edison, excuse the expression, might well be your light bulb moment. Or more recently, Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple Computers. But how do they come up with such ideas in the first place? And what makes an invention work? Well, very good to have your company. I'm David Foster. You're watching Roundtable. Thanks for your company. As technology advances, different types of inventions emerge, from robotic body parts for humans, global positioning systems, the old GPS, old in a sense, and social media. Is invention necessary to man? Could we ever run out of ideas?
New inventions are constantly being created. In the last 50 years, the World Intellectual Property Organization has processed 4.5 million international patent, trademark and design applications. Inventors come from all walks of life. As Thomas Edison said, to invent, you need a good imagination and a pile of junk. But what does it take to be an inventor in today's competitive global market? Is there a formula for a winning invention?
Let us get talking. From Maryland in the United States, we have Andrea Evans, who's an intellectual property attorney. She'll tell us what you should and shouldn't do, where you can get caught out. With me at the round table, Garrick Jones from the Open Innovation Programme at the London School of Economics, Jonathan Wilson from Hult International Business School, and Adrian Westaway, an inventor from Special Project Studio. And Adrian, you're going to show us a little bit about what you've got in mind at the moment for the market. But let me come to you first of all, Garrick. What makes a good inventor?
A good inventor,
yeah,
or a good invention?
Inventor and invention.
I think
because one follows from the other.
It does, you know. But the inventor is the person who really is curious about life and curious about problem solving, and is able to keep their mind open and look at all kinds of things and find solutions by practicing and messing about and, you know, sorting it out.
Can you sit down in the morning and think, I'm going to invent something?
You can. I do believe you can. Whether you come up with a good invention or something that's going to be truly innovative is a different thing, but you can invent something every day.
Adrian, we're going to talk about your invention in just a moment, the one you put together with your wife. Let's hear a little bit about it. You've put together this short promo video.
We're really inspired by the way that people interact with objects, and there's so much potential in transferring some of our physical behaviours into the digital world. When we work with pen and paper, it's very easy to use our desk space to organise ourselves and move between tasks. The problem is, when you try and do this on a phone, switching between tasks can feel very unnatural and disrupt your flow. So we've invented a new way of digitally navigating through different apps on a phone, which is completely inspired by the physical world. You can literally pin an app to a physical space. So every time you bring the phone back to that exact space, the same app will be active. There's no limit to how many apps you could pin. It's a little like building a virtual desktop in the space around you. Let's imagine you're writing an email and you want to add an image. You just move to the place where your images are kept and drag it across. Or, if you want to copy some text over, you can literally drop it from one space to another. You can drag digital content using the physical space. Or imagine you're trying to fix an appointment with a friend. You can just switch between your calendar and your conversation until you find a date that works for both of you. We're really excited by the potential of using physical space to navigate the digital, and think that by being inspired by the ways humans behave, we can really enrich our digital interactions.
Adrian, that's it in practice. I know it's coming to the market pretty soon. You're looking for different ways in which to market it, and we'll get onto that in just a moment, Jonathan, if we could. But what made you think that was the thing to invent?
Sometimes you find yourself on a train or something and you have a lot of work to do and you're kind of flipping between documents. And we thought that a lot of the apps were designed very well, but the space between them had sort of been neglected. And that moment when you're kind of moving from one app to another, didn't really feel designed. And we thought, well, maybe there's a kind of more interesting, more kind of tangible and human way to move content between apps.
It's all very well to come up with an idea of something that you'd like to help solve something. It's a different matter making it a reality. That's the difficult bit, isn't it? I mean, I'd like to be able to get to the moon quite quickly for a weekend, but I don't know how to do it. So how do you work out how to do something like that?
Well,
isn't that the principle?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you try and imagine the experience, and there's a whole sort of process we go through, just sort of at the beginning, just imagining what it will feel like, and then creating various iterations and prototypes to kind of bring you closer to making something real. And then in parallel, there's a whole kind of area of protecting the intellectual property, which is a kind of whole other thread that happens in parallel.
Well, we'll get onto that with Andrea in just a little bit. But one question I have for you right now is, you talk about when you move it, it goes to the same space.
Yes.
What about if you move from that space? Does it make any difference if you're on a train or if you're walking or you go to the kitchen from the dining room or whatever?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I guess what you're asking is, if I'm on a train and I start using an app, is it going to kind of be stuck at the station when the train starts to move? No, it's all based on the relative position, the position relative to the phone. So you could be walking or moving or in a car, and it would always be to the left or to the right or above or below.
And it's called, once again?
Magic UX.
Magic UX. Well, watch out for that one. Jonathan, it's all very well having an idea. It's all very well sitting down and sort of getting, you know, the first steps on this road. But those are the easy ones in a way, aren't they?
Yeah, and those are the ones that people get most excited about, because if you think about movies and this idea of the mad professor and phrases like necessity is the mother of invention, and, you know, people inventing excuses to get themselves out of situations, people like that aspect and think that there's this light bulb eureka moment, and then you create this thing and then everyone's going to love it. And the thing that I'd like to say, because, you know, my area is marketing, is people think that you can market anything, but, you know, to be a bit controversial, I might say you can polish poo, but you can't do much else with it. I mean, I think that the invention has to be robust and sound in the first place, and then you can do something with it. And the challenge, I think, for inventors, compared with perhaps the term that's in vogue at the moment, is innovation. So innovators who are effectively following an iteration, and there's a tried and tested method, it's reducing risk, investors feel a lot more confident about it than this thing that comes out of the blue. So if you have an inventor...
So refining something that's already there.
Right, because that's the business case, because I think the challenge is not that the inventor has created something of which there is no use, but it's difficult to communicate that value, especially if it's a big leap to people that don't know about these things. I mean, can you imagine, before we saw smartphones, if someone did like a vox pop and said, would you like a phone with no keypad that can play songs, that can take photographs, that you can answer messages, and people are like, no, I would much rather have my Discman, and I would much rather have a keyboard, because how would it know where my thumbs go? And so there's a lot that's gone into marketing, and, you know, Apple is the example that everyone talks about, right? Because they were just able to do some really good marketing, and they didn't innovate as much as some of the other providers, and so I think that bit's really important.
Andrea, you've got to lock it down, haven't you? And once you've locked it down, I mean, I know you principally deal in the United States, and we're talking about global things here, but once you lock it down, are you going to make money if it's successful, or can you still get ripped off?
Well, you hope you're going to make money. That's why you invented the invention in the first place. Just like the inventor was saying, you want to solve a problem. So essentially, you hope that for the US at least, in order to have something patentable, it needs to be useful and solve a problem. So essentially it does that because that's why you invented it in the first place. Secondly, the invention needs to be novel or new, meaning nothing else exists. And then lastly, it needs to be non-obvious, meaning with one of ordinary skill in the art, take what's out there and combine it to make this invention.
Garrick, I know you don't need introducing to Adrian, because he was one of your students.
He was.
How do you teach? Do you sit down in a studio,
It reminds me of somebody asking directions to Carnegie Hall, and they asked somebody in the street, and how do I get to Carnegie Hall? And the answer was, practice, my dear, practice. And it's the same thing. There's a difference between an inventor and an innovator. And innovation for us is something that not only is an idea, but something that has satisfied all of the marketing requirements, all of the patent law, all of the needs, and gets all the way through to the end, to the market. That, where it changes people's lives in the market, that's an innovation. invention is the great blue sky new stuff that comes up with, which may be solving a problem that we know we have, or maybe solving a problem that's going to be coming down the line, because inventors have different ways of looking at things and different ways of achieving things. How we teach things is essentially a process. We think it is possible to be innovative. It is possible to teach innovation, but like anything, like I'm a musician, some people are naturally into it, and some people have to work a lot harder.
So what do you say to students on day one? You might remember it, you might remember what he was like,
Yeah.
but what do you say? A lot of you here
Is what we
think
say.
you're going to go and think you're going to become rich
Yeah.
and famous. You might. Is that the sort of thing you
We
say?
say to them that it's about a way of thinking, and it's a way of looking at the world. And what we try to teach them is not only to open up and look at all kinds of things in the world that they may have not have experienced before, put those together. But then the other thing we ask them to look is here's a process, here's a way to prototype things, do it lo-fi, do it low cost, make many ideas, and then keep iterating to the point where it starts to sharpen the pencil, become further and further and further clear about what you're trying to achieve. And that is something you have to practice, like learning to play the piano or something.
Andrew, I think we sorted out the sound problem. You were saying about tying down an idea.
Yes, so in the US, in order to have something patentable, the invention needs to be useful and solve a problem. The invention needs to be novel or new, meaning nothing exists. And then the third standard is the invention needs to be non-obvious, meaning that it couldn't be obvious to take something that's out there and combine it to make the invention.
I sort of got that this time, but not entirely. Adrian, let's come back to you. Your first day in the lecture theatre, Garrick is there. He's talking to you about how to be successful. What particular idea did you take away?
You mean from the whole process?
Well,
it's funny you
the
talk about-
first impression.
It's funny, the first day actually was completely different. Garrick arrived and gave us all £200 and then disappeared for 2 weeks and said, build the studio.
There was nothing.
There was nothing.
We brought them into an empty studio. No desks, nothing.
So there were 20 people, 20 of us. We all had £200. He told us you can go to IKEA and spend £50 on a desk if you want, but the bar is quite high. And so we had to create our own kind of studio environment, which was fantastic because some people created, crazy ideas, crazy desks. One of them had a sweet dispenser that every time somebody came into the room, it would drop sweets onto your desk. But then, of course, over the course of the 2 years, you'd have to live with your invention. And 3 months in, you've kind of got a wobbly leg and things like this. So it was really.
I bet somebody put egg boxes on the wall.
Yeah, there was all sorts. of things,
Yes, to deaden the sound. That's fantastic. Okay, so at the end of the day, you came away with confidence.
Yes.
Yes. And the feeling that anybody could do it, or do you have to be a genius?
I think, the most important thing was the belief that really anything is possible, and that's a really difficult thing to teach people and put into people's minds, and that's probably the most kind of powerful thing we could have learned. And then, of course, the tools to bring these ideas into reality and convince people and kind of get people on board when you just have an early idea to take it forward.
It's got to be eye-catching, I suppose, to get the attention that makes it saleable in the first place. So how do you go, Jonathan, down that route?
I'm kind of interested by the fact that you got 200 quid. I think if I got £200, I would probably use that to go and take somebody out for a drink and convince them to have an endorsement deal with my course, and then I'd pocket the £200 and after a couple of drinks, and then we'd be fully kitted out. So I think that highlights the fact that actually there are different ways that you can solve that problem. So if you need to kit out a lecture room or a space, different people with different ways of creative thinking will try and solve that problem. The challenge becomes now that, it's a cliche, but the best invention is the wheel, right? So when we've got to the stage when you've got wheels, and now we have wheels, we've got to think about what is it that we're improving. So sometimes I wonder that, when you see someone come out with a new cordless, battery-powered electric toothbrush that gets your teeth clean, and you think, well, for centuries people have been using twigs, miswak twigs, that are now in fashion in Hipsterville, people are spending a lot of money on them. So I think it's still that challenge of, when you teach innovation, students come with great ideas. And I have to kind of be the grumpy old man to say, but do I really need that? But really try and sell it to me.
Okay, so what do you think? Could he sell his idea to you?
Yeah, you could. And yeah, of course you can. Anyone can do it. But I think, I mean, it's important to say that,
Are you being polite, or do you think you've been interested in what he's doing?
I actually think that when it comes to an idea, when there's an inventor, a lot of it that relies upon whether someone goes forward is, what's the person like? Where are they from? What's their background? What's their form? What drove them? I want to understand their thinking.
Their story?
Yeah, what's their thinking process? Because if I'm going to invest money and time in that person, I want to know that they're going to come out with 2, 3, 4 ideas. And I also think there's a big glug of luck. I mean, you mentioned music. People can learn to play the piano, the guitar, whatever it is. They can write great songs, but they might never make it. You know, luck is a big component, and I think that means that you want to get lucky, basically. So the way to increase the chances of you being more lucky is to network, is to practice, is to consistently come out with ideas, to hone them down, to learn how to pitch more effectively, to be cogent in a certain amount of time. So actually, the skill set of an inventor becomes greater and greater and greater because there's more competition and because there are just so many moving parts.
Andrea, I think we can get back to you. I think it's all sorted now. So tell me a little bit about the biggest legal problems that people who want to patent their inventions will have, because you can copyright in certain countries, you can't patent in others, and so on and so forth.
Sure. So I think one of the biggest misconceptions about inventing is that often people think because they don't see their invention in the store that it exists and it is patentable, but it's really it may not be. And so the important thing is that research done to ensure that you have something that's definitely patentable.
Yeah, okay, we do seem to have you. Start off very well, Andrea. Your thoughts are always there, but unfortunately the technology's letting us down. Perhaps we need somebody to invent something that could circumvent this problem within the next 10 minutes. Okay, where were we? We were talking about the idea of getting a product out there. How do you get that product out there? You say, Jonathan, it's something to do with the salesman and the person themselves. But in reality, until you get to meet somebody, until you can show what sort of personality you are, that's going to be a problem.
We think it's all about not only the marketing and also getting the story, but the narrative that is about the story, about the product, about this problem it's solving, has got to be something that people relate to, or people can talk about and get viral with. The one thing about Adrian, if I may say, is Adrian is a magician, a real magician. He does magic tricks. Yeah. Exactly, proper thing. And we were always encouraging Adrian to kind of put his magic into his products and his design, because it's so much a part of him. As a result, here we have a studio that really does magical things and produces products that people find magical and are amusing and enchanting, and the stories you want to tell your friends. I met Adrian today, he showed me another one of his projects. Oh my God, look what he's done now. It's always like that. So we think the narrative is really, really important, the story that's been told.
And you're part of the Inventors Studio. It's your company, isn't it?
Yes, so we have a studio.
So how on earth can you say, today we're going to invent something? I would have thought it's a bit like writing a book, isn't it? You know, you might have a blank piece of paper in front of you for weeks.
I mean, really, so we maybe will invent 20 things in a year, roughly, mainly for other companies. And we have a process we follow, but it always starts with people, the people that we're designing for. And like you were saying, you want to increase the chances of seeing something unexpected that's going to give you a spark or a push in a new direction. So whenever we start any project, you kind of imagine the inventors kind of huddled over a soldering iron all the time. We're actually in people's houses, like watching people use different objects and solving problems in different ways. So we really immerse ourselves in the environment that we'll be inventing in. So typically we'll spend 1 to 2 months observing and shadowing people before we even start coming up with ideas. And that's a way of kind of making sure we can keep doing this for longer periods of time.
Give us an idea of the sort of things that you're looking at the moment, without giving too much away.
Okay, I have to just think that we're often not allowed to talk about it too much. So we've just finished working on actually a theme park concept. We're doing some work on using DNA to customize a consumer product in quite a new way. And we are also, let me just try and think of it. Well, we actually worked on trying to take medical products that are often quite stigmatizing and make people feel quite bad and quite ill, and completely transform our relationship with these often, quite complex products to make them feel much more aspirational and have a better effect on the way people feel.
Because of course they've all changed our lives, haven't they? Inventions.
Yeah. But I think some of what you're saying sounds like innovation rather than invention, right? Because you're doing research and you're trying to solve a problem to something which kind of exists. And I think there's a spectrum, right? Innovators, smart innovators that get paid good money, that have a business, that can come up with 20 ideas a day. It's a hit factory, right? It's like, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but you think about, producers that produce top hits, like they have a system, but there isn't necessarily the selfishness that people associate with this mad inventor who is kind of oblivious to the fact that other people may or may not like what it is that they're creating, but they just genuinely believe that it's important. And I think it's that yin and yang that's important for an investor, because you need people that are willing to challenge the status quo. And that's why sometimes I think that, when I lecture innovation or inventions and stuff, it's almost a contradiction. Like, if you've paid money to come here to learn how to do it, then I don't know if you're inventors. Like, should you really be here? You could be smart professionals, but you're not the kind of the hardwired inventor that I know, because they're normally quite eccentric. They're not very good at kind of interacting and
Can't tie their own shoelaces.
Exactly, and that's
Can't
why
boil
they
an
create
egg.
slip-on shoes.
I'm going to go around the table now, and we'll come to Andrea one more time. Just that one bit of advice for somebody who's sitting out there thinking, I know I've got an idea, and I know I could change the world. What would it be?
Well, the first thing is make sure you have more than an idea and a concept. You need to be able to explain it in a way that someone can actually understand the.
So that's Andrea's thought. Each one of you must have an idea about what somebody sitting at home watching this might be best equipped to do. What would you say?
To invent something, you've got to get out in the world and absorb all the ideas you can find from all different places, and then start building. The most important idea I would leave people is, if you want to do something, start by making something. Draw a line in the sand, get some things, build a cheap version of something, make it out of cardboard, and then start your process of iterating as you move forward.
Or you could give somebody £200 and get them to do it for you.
Well, you've got to start somewhere.
Of all the time you've spent seeing inventors,
Yes.
What were the most extraordinary things?
The most extraordinary things, I think, were things at the time of the internet being set up, like inventors who came up with code to do what became Adobe Photoshop, and things that took us from the analog world into the digital world are the things that really stay with me. People like Bob Stein, who invented the way that we look at use information on computer screens and so on. That, to me, has been the biggest shift in my lifetime, yeah.
Same for you? Of course, you pretty much grew up in the digital world.
Yeah, I saw a kind of transition. Yeah. I mean, I think for me the most important thing for inventors is to not think of your invention as a product, but think of it as something that is experienced over a longer period of time. So, it's not just about the moment that you use it, it's the moment that you store it, it's the moment that it's in your pocket, it's the moment it's on your wall. And thinking that products make you feel different things. And there are hundreds of phones that exist. You go out and buy one of many mobile phones today, but most people buy just one or two, and that's for a reason. So really to kind of broaden the scope and think of a whole experience.
Okay. Jonathan, come on. That nugget for somebody. Excuse me.
All those movies and children's books that you saw with events in them, forget them and ignore them, right?
Well, the Professor Brainstorm books.
Yeah, because what I would say is think that inventions are much wider than creating something out of egg boxes, right? The Fosbury flop in the high jump, that was an invention. That was a different way to do the high jump, right? Jimi Hendrix, the Beatles, they've invented new sounds and new ways of understanding music. So it's not just physical objects, it's intangibles. And I think also ask yourself, why are you inventing? Is it because it makes you feel good? Is it because you want to make money, which then means you've got to raise the bar a little bit higher? Or is it because you want to solve a problem? And if that problem's in a developing nation, then it's really got to solve a problem. It can't just be like the electric toothbrush. It's got to be something which costs less, which doesn't cost very much, which people can access at scale, and it's going to give them returns that will change their everyday life.
See, in terms of making money,
Yes.
Could it be a bit like an artist or a musician?
We
you
say-
don't get your recognition until after you're dead.
Sometimes, but we think if you get it right now, it's cheaper, better, faster, wow. Those are the four things. Cheaper, better, faster, wow, and you're going to win every time.
And could somebody in let's say China, why not say China, just take your idea and rip it off?
They do all the time.
So you could have the most brilliant idea in the world, and yet
Yeah.
That's it. Like,
Well, that's why we've got the law, and hopefully international law, European law, and all the rest of it is in place to allow us to have a fair playing field.
which is more fun, being an inventor or being a magician? Or are they?
I get to do both. I think the way we invent in our studio, we use magic in the way we invent. So really, the two are the same for me.
How do you do that?
Just the way I mean, I actually can't
You
tell
can't
because I'm
tell
gonna get
me.
kicked out of
Yes.
the magic
That's
circle.
wonderful. He comes on a
But-
chat show.
yeah.
Now he can't talk.
It's true.
That's extraordinary. Well, listen, the very best of luck to you. I think the next stage you're going to is trying to find somebody who would license it from you, and then they would do the selling and you would reap the rewards.
Potentially, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Has he changed in the how many years since you taught
He's
him?
only got better.
Fantastic. Listen, thank you all very much indeed. Andrea, I know we had a little bit of a sound issue, but we appreciate your input into the programme. Garrick, Jonathan, Adrian, thank you very much indeed. And thank you for watching. We will disappear now, whether it's courtesy of Adrian or simply because we've run out of time, I'm not entirely sure. But thank you for watching Roundtable. From me, David Foster, and the team. Goodbye for now. See you next time.